they will no longer be part of the alliance. I mean, this is an alliance that is resolutely focused on net zero.
The Conservatives have been doing some digging. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, Mark Carney's skeletons are coming out of the closet as the Conservatives have dug up that through Brookfield Asset Management, with Mark Carney being the chair of the company, there are coal miners who have black lung and are not being properly cared for. They're being denied medication. Not a good look. We've also got Mark Carney insulting Canadians' intelligence at a press conference. No, really, he insults our intelligence. It's ridiculous. We also had the premiers meeting. They came to a joint decision to try to open up trade barriers among some other stuff. Let's jump into this. First up, we got new polling data here from Simieritsch, Abacus poll. This one, 39% for the Conservatives, 36% for the Liberals. You'll see here there's a trend that's happening, but first he's got this one modeled out here. That's 158 seats, sadly, for the Liberals, giving them a minority government. If we move on to the next one here, we've got this one, which shows Nano's poll coming out 35% for the Conservatives, 34% for the Liberals. And this showing the NDP popping up here. If we go back to the last one, NDP sitting at 12. What will happen? And you're seeing the block back at 8% on this one. We need a televised debate soon. It'll be worse than Sleepy Joe's debacle. Yeah, exactly. Mark Carney is going to get obliterated. He has way too many skeletons in his closet. So we got Mark Carney coming out saying, my government is canceling the capital gains hike. That's right. They're canceling their own hike that they put in. It's their policy. We're going to incentivize builders, innovators, and entrepreneurs to grow their businesses right here in Canada, create more good paying jobs. Congratulations, you guys canceled your own policy. Another policy stolen from Pierre. Yeah, I mean, another broken liberal policy, copying Pierre Poilievre. On other news, we got Donald Trump announced this new F-47 fighter jet in America that's being built by Boeing. He went on a big speech saying it's the greatest thing, the fastest thing, the best thing. Basically, it's a new fighter jet that's better than all other jets. Next up, we got this bombshell video coming from the Conservatives. It shows a company that Brookfield bought and owns is refusing to pay for treatments for coal miners who have black lung. They're suffering with black lung, and they just go through legal battles over and over and over. And you think with Mark Carney being the chair of Brookfield, a guy in charge of environmental sustainability, would want to step in and help these coal miners. Apparently not.
I'm 75 and look what I'm doing.
I loved it. Used to work out and play softball on the weekends and just things I can't do anymore.
Meet Tony Coriolis and Kenneth Phillips. They both used to be coal miners in the United States until their careers were halted by black lung. Why should this matter to Canadians? Well, because Mark Carney's company, Brookfield, was making money off the backs of these gentlemen and many like them. With Carney at the helm, Brookfield launched Brookfield Reinsurance, an insurance division operating out of Bermuda, free from Canadian regulations and taxes.
This is exactly what we saw from the NDP just like a week or so ago, blasting Mark Carney and Brookfield Asset Management, not paying $6 billion of Canadian taxes, tax evasion. That's who our Prime Minister is, a guy who chairs the company who has the largest tax evasion in Canada.
The big strategic initiatives that Brookfield has taken in the last few years is to build an insurance business.
In 2023, Brookfield bought Rockwood's parent company, Argo Group, for $1.1 billion US. Despite Carney's insistence on everyone else getting off coal, with Rockwood, he was making money by denying black lung treatments and benefits to sick coal miners and their families. Carney and his Brookfield buddy Bruce Flatt saw the insurance business as a cash cow.
So it's just sort of an addition to our overall business, and it gives us large sums of money.
Just over 3 years ago, Kenneth wound up in the hospital with a bout of pneumonia. A chest x-ray revealed he had black lung. He was prescribed an anti-fibrotic medication called OFEV. The problem? OFEV can cost up to $14,000 per month.
So I've been dealing with Rockwood over that whole time, trying to get them to pay for it, and they finally just told me that they weren't paying for it.
He was finally cut off by Rockwood for good in January of this year. There's no sign he'll be able to get back on this drug that can keep his disease at bay. Workers have difficulty getting even the most basic benefits from Rockwood. In Tony Coriolis' case, Rockwood fought him all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
This is awful. If you watch the full version, this is the short version. I'll link up the full one at the end. There's multiple people that are going through this exact same thing with Brookfield and Rockwood, to the point where these people will die fighting this company, trying to get them to pay for their medical treatments. And then their family continues the fight. The wife, the daughter, the son continues the fight, fighting against Rockwood and Brookfield, trying to get what's right for the family because of the black lung. It's disgusting. This is absolutely awful.
Yeah, and I want my wife to have compensation after I'm gone. So it's in their best behalf that you're dead and gone.
There are far too many cases of Rockwood fighting against coal miners to list. Billy Mullins, Dennis McCracken, Robert Lee, Truman Nieper, Robert Rule. But hey, the less money spent on these folks, the more Carney and Brookfield get to keep, right?
It's going very well.
Nothing's fair anymore.
If this is how Mark Carney's company treats sick workers, how is he going to treat Canadians?
Good luck.
I believe I'd vote for the other guy.
This is absolutely awful. Not a good look for Carney and Brookfield. I thought Carney was all about the environment, but he owns a coal mine. Yeah, they own Darby Mill, the Australian coal export terminal as well. They have oil and gas pipelines in UAE, Brazil. Coal, as you saw, coal in America, hardly net zero, right? And the population will blindly vote for Carney. What's wrong with Canadian voters? I've noticed this. A lot of people, they seem to like Carney because he's a blank slate. They don't know anything about him. He's not Justin Trudeau with all the scandals. He's not attached to that. He's just some guy. And they like that. It's really sad. People need to research who they're going to vote for, not just be like, oh, a banker guy, he must be good. These personal attacks by Pierre gotta stop. This is BS. It's not BS. These are the actions of a company that Mark Carney owns $7 million worth. As this guy says here, how else would voters learn the truth about candidates for prime minister? Here keeps talking about positive plans all the time. Just pay attention. I mean, we look at what else Brookfield's involved in. They're being sued by the city of Lima. The mayor came out and had that big expose exposing how Brookfield was involved in that dirty deal. They bought up a whole bunch of land, including the roadway, and they have tolls that are paid, and the impoverished people can't use the road. They can't afford it. The farmers, rural people in poverty because of it in Peru. Remember, Mark Carney has $7 million worth of stocks in this company. He's not like he was the low-level janitor. We got Brett posting this one. It says, unelected prime minister says he's going to keep the emissions cap in place. He's also going to clear framework for carbon pricing. He's going to create an entire new industry from this. You thought Trudeau's carbon tax was bad. Just imagine what Carney has in store.
The emission cap, yes, keep the emission cap in place, but the regulation, a law, that doesn't reduce emissions. What I'm focused on is action in order to reduce those emissions. That requires partnerships. It requires a different framework, the types of things we were talking about in the room. Sorry, it's a big word, but it means that you've got to be able to get a project approved quickly.
I'm sorry, did you just say framework is a large word? This guy just insulted Canadians' intelligence. Carney, we all know what the word framework is. This guy's unbelievable. Just going back here.
Types of things we were talking about in the room. Sorry, it's a big word, but it means...
Sorry, for framework, it's a big word. He's talking about the word framework. It's not like there's another word in there. Does he really think we're all that stupid? We don't know the word framework?
That you've got to be able to get a project approved quickly. You have to be able to have co-investment in those projects. You have to have a clear framework for carbon pricing and others. All of that's required in order to help get those emissions down. And one of the projects, I firmly believe this, of national interest, national significance, is major investments in carbon capture and storage. We have the opportunity not just to get emissions down, but very importantly, to create an entirely new industry that will serve Canadians well.
He's going to create a whole new industry. That's right, his net zero agenda, because it already destroyed Great Britain. I showed that a couple days ago. He wants to do it here in Canada. And he thinks that nobody will notice because we don't know what the word framework is, because we're too dumb to know.
But will create exports and jobs and opportunities for many decades.
This guy is absolutely unbelievable. Did he just say that he knows framework is a big word, implying that we are simpletons, like we wouldn't understand what that word means. It gets worse every day. He's so out of touch with reality. Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that. He thinks we're all stupid. Pipelines are in a different country. Of course he wants to shut down Canada's oil industry so his are more profitable. That's a conflict of interest right there. Any industry he can shut down in Canada, boost his profits. That's those $7 million of shares. Those all go up. So basically another tax. So could a company like Brookfield benefit from Canada having a carbon capture program? Of course they could. Wake up, people. We've got quite the interesting video here that Ryan Gerritsen posted. So as he says here from 2021, Carney's talking about his GFANZ Alliance. That's a Glasgow financial alliance that Mark Carney set up. It says if you lag behind on your green duties, you'll be out of the club. Mark Carney rambles in this video, but towards the end is the punchline.
What will the consequences be if someone lags behind and doesn't do what they promised?
Well, look, if it's consistent, they're not making the effort, and continue to underperform, they will no longer be part of the alliance. I mean, this is an alliance that is resolutely focused on net zero.
Are you insisting that as part of membership of this club, these investment companies, banks, pensions, and so on, end any subsidization or investment in fossil fuel companies?
Well, I wouldn't say any financing in fossil fuel companies. To be clear, what they've committed to is the most rigorous transition that the scientific community has put out there, which is, and I'll be more specific, the IEA 1.5 degree transition with no overshoot. The cognoscenti will know exactly what that means. There's the IPC scenario as well, or pathway with that. That's what they're committing to. And so
that includes continuing to invest in fossil fuel companies.
Well, listen, Hannah, there is not a green switch that we can flip this afternoon and move from being economies where 4/5 of global energy is supplied by fossil fuels today, and overnight be 100% supplied by renewables. That's not possible. But what is essential is there's not new investment in additional capacity that the world is not going to need.
You catch that? No new investment in fossil fuel projects.
There's not new investment in additional capacity that the world is not going to need.
Is the world going to need oil and gas in Canada? Will he do new investment? He just said it there. He wouldn't do it. So is he lying to Canadians? Yes, he's lying to Canadians. He's already been caught lying 7, 8 times now. The counter is going to break here at this point. He thinks if Liberal wins election, there will be mass exodus of Canadian business to the U.S. It's beginning. Yep, the Canadian business will just all leave. They'll be like, I've had enough of this net zero garbage, and all flood down, especially if Trump makes it easy. C'est la vie. Next up, we got one posted here by Cat Canada. They're asking him about the federal emissions cap.
CBC News, you appeared to suggest yesterday that you're open to moving away from the federal government's emissions cap, while your environment minister said that the cap will remain in place. Can you explain what your approach will be to the emissions cap, and specifically how it will be determined and what will inform your decision?
Well, there's two things, or there's several things here. First, I'm a pragmatist, so I'm focused on, as the government is, on getting emissions down from the production and transportation of conventional oil and gas. Okay, that's good for the environment. It ultimately will be good for the competitiveness of those producers and the distribution of that. So that's the objective, is to get down. Now, there is a role for an emissions cap, and again, emissions cap, not a production cap, but an emissions cap. I know you didn't say it, but just to be clear, because some twist it. There is a role for an
emissions cap is a production cap, Carney. You know it.
Emissions cap within that. But what's required in order to get those emissions down, the emissions intensity down of the production that we can see growing, particularly if Canadian oil and gas is displacing American oil and gas that we're importing right now in Eastern Canada. What's required is investment in carbon capture and storage technology, investment in reducing methane, fugitive methane, methane flame, other aspects, et cetera. What's required is investment. And what happened I can't remember where the room is, whether it was there or over there, somewhere around here where the room was, and what I was referring to earlier, what the federal government is doing.
This guy's an absolute disaster. Every time he speaks, he's going to call an election. It's going to be the shortest election period ever because he's an absolute mess.
Is putting in place the framework so that investment is going to happen more quickly. So my focus, and where I took my response the other day, is around how are we going to make that investment happen. So the cap is there. Issue is getting the investments down. How are we going to get them down? I'm focused on that. We're making progress in unlocking that. We need to continue to work on it.
He said it right there. His focus is on getting emissions down. That's what he cares about. He doesn't care about building Canadian GDP businesses, getting people back to work, bringing down unemployment, cutting down immigration. He cares about emissions. That's all he cares about. Good luck getting Alberta on board, Carney. You're in for a rude awakening. Next up, we got a report here on the Chinese tariffs on seafood and how that's hitting Canadian fisheries.
Really, those Chinese tariffs are going to hit other products, so things like shrimp, sea cucumber, and halibut. There's one company, Baffin Fisheries. They have an $80 million brand new trawler, and a lot of their product goes to China, 60 to 70%. Their CEO, Chris Flanagan, says that these tariffs mean when Canadian companies go to other markets now, there's going to be a lot of competition between Canadian companies trying to sell their seafood.
Well, it's a huge hit because not only is there the 25% tariff right at the doorstep in China, but what that means is all the Canadian companies, and I suppose some American ones too, that normally sell to China are going to look for other markets. We're going to look to Europe primarily and other shrimp markets. So with everybody moving their product or trying to move their product out of China to other markets, well, that'll put pressure on the prices there. So we will see decreases in prices in Europe.
Yeah, that just creates way too much competition, and then they all suffer for it. The Liberals aren't going to do anything about these tariffs. They like the tariffs. They love feeding off of it, and they've proven that. So there you have it. Mark Carney thinks we're stupid. Thinks that we don't know the word framework. Apparently, with this bombshell scandal being dug up with a coal miner, Black Lung, we got the land that Brookfield bought in Peru, which blocked off a lot of the low-income and impoverished people. They can't use the road. It's too expensive. It's causing poverty down there. What other skeletons does Mark Carney have from his time at Brookfield Asset Management? Now, people will say, well, he doesn't work there anymore, but he owns $7 million worth of stock. He's very much invested in that company. He'll be doing stuff as prime minister that will affect his shares that he owns in Brookfield Asset Management. He should have to sell those shares to become prime minister. What a ridiculous gong show.